In 2002, this book first was published, but it's garnered a lot of attention since the new HBO documentary came out, The Jinx. The story is about Robert Durst. It's called A Deadly Secret, the bizarre and chilling story of Robert Durst, and its author, Matt Birkbeck, is with us. Matt, thanks for joining us here on KTRS.
My pleasure.
So, Robert Durst was found with this book when the cops searched his apartment?
Yeah, that was pretty interesting. I got a email from a producer at one of the morning shows when the search warrant had been opened, and they said that he had 3 books, and 2 of them were copies of A Deadly Secret. So first I was surprised, I guess. Then the more I thought about it, the book is a roadmap. You know, for those who saw the HBO show The Jinx, it was more or less a primer on the Durst story, and it didn't get into what was going on before this new investigation into the disappearance of Kathy Durst had begun. You know, I get into exactly what Durst had been doing in at least more than a decade before the new investigation it began in 1999, and he'd been living this bizarre life, crisscrossing the country, stealing identities, living surreptitiously amongst the homeless, and somehow learning how to dismember a body. So I kind of thought, or I came to the conclusion that he just kept the book by his side, more like a, you know, as a roadmap, in that the police know what he had been, or led to what he was doing.
Did you
years prior? So he kept it close by.
Did you ever talk to him about the book, or interview him for the book?
I did not. I tried. I was surprised when he agreed to talk to Andrew Jarecki. I've known Jarecki since 2005, but apparently Durst was infatuated with his portrayal in the film All Good Things and thought it was somewhat favorable, and so he felt some kind of a kinship with Jarecki and thought he was going to get the same treatment in the documentary, and we know how that turned out.
Right.
So, but I saw him I covered the Galveston trial in 2002, and as well as a hearing in Pennsylvania. I saw him a few times, but never had a chance to speak to him.
The book is called A Deadly Secret, the bizarre and chilling story of Robert Durst. Matt Birkbeck is our guest. Matt, clearly the man has some mental issues.
He does, and that's something else that wasn't in The Jinx, and that is going back to when he was a child. He was diagnosed, and the letter is in my book. He was diagnosed with severe psychological issues. He had anger issues towards his father and his brother Douglas, and the psychiatrist that was treating him had to stop after just a couple of sessions, saying right now he's untreatable, but if someone doesn't find a way to treat him, the foundation is being laid for some major issues later in his life, and we've seen what some of those issues are.
Tell people he's the son of a billionaire, and give us the primer. I mean, why are people so fascinated with this guy?
Well, think Donald Trump. Durst's family rivaled Trump in terms of New York real estate circles. His father, Seymour, was among one of the most powerful men in New York and had been for decades. They own real estate up and down Manhattan. They managed the new World Financial Center, replacement for the Twin Towers. So very, very powerful, very influential family. So when you mix in these bizarre antics of a member of a family such as that, it makes for good news.
Now, some of these cases go as far back as the 90s, right? As far as some of the cases that he is being investigated for?
Well, he was originally investigated for the Kathy Durst disappearance, which was 82. That was resurrected in 1999 by a state police detective in New York. And then that led to, ultimately, the murder of Susan Berman in 2000, and then the dismemberment of Morris Black, this drifter, in 2001. But I had reported in the book, when it first came out, that there were 2 missing women in Northern California. What people didn't know, what investigators didn't even know, was that Durst had been living this bizarre life, stealing identities, and living amongst the homeless and transients for many, many years. And somehow, and this is a question that still hasn't been answered, he learned how to dismember a body. And so that So there are those two cases in Northern California. They've now said, the police in New England and Vermont say that they are looking at Durst and the disappearance of a young woman who went missing in 1972. So that goes even way beyond what I thought.
Why? How can it be that he keeps evading guilty plea? I mean, are his lawyers so good? I mean, why does this guy keep getting off from all this stuff?
You know, it's a combination. It's a really good question, and it's a combination of some really bad police work, a very bizarre jury in Galveston. You know, getting back to relating to the police, you've got 3 distinct cases in 3 different jurisdictions. You've also got missing women in other parts of the country, and the local police jurisdictions can't get it together. Initially, it was because of the former Westchester County District Attorney Jeanine Pirro. Everyone had issues with her, and then later on, it got to the point where no one wanted to share information. Luckily, though, the FBI has been involved in this since 2012, and they're now finally taking a global look at Durst. So they're looking at cases throughout the country, not just the 3 that we know about or the 2 that I reported on. They're looking everywhere that he's lived, and it's a lot of different cities. And they're trying to get to the bottom of what he was doing. The
book is called A Deadly Secret, the bizarre and chilling story of Robert Durst. Matt Birkbeck first published the book in 2002. They've since re-released it after all this new attention. Has his family disowned him? He still has brothers out there, right?
Yeah, he's got 2 brothers and a sister, and they've been terrified of him for years. He's been, you know, they're obviously they're familiar with his history. I think that they were relieved when he was finally arrested. I know Douglas Durst, who's in New York and who now runs the Durst organization, has always feared for his life. So they've pretty much disowned him. They paid him off from his trusts years ago. He had gotten $60-70 million. So they've just, for the most part, they've had security keep an eye on him through the years, but they haven't had any contact with him.
He since this HBO documentary came out, he's been since re-arrested, right?
Correct. He was arrested in New Orleans the night before the final episode of the HBO documentary. My understanding was he was going to be indicted. It was going to happen a couple of weeks after the documentary had aired, but they believed he was going to flee, and that's when the FBI stepped in.
Yeah. Matt, last question for you. You mentioned 2 different times in this brief interview that he had to learn how to dismember somebody. Without getting too graphic, is that something you have to be taught or learned or practiced? That's a bizarre thing to say.
I don't think you or I could pick up a book and go, okay, great, we can do this now. It's something that you obviously have to practice. It was something that was told to me by the police down there in Galveston when I first went there. They said that whoever killed Morris Black, whoever dismembered him, knew what he was doing. And that to me is chilling, and that to me speaks volumes as to what Durst had been doing in the years leading up to that point. So hopefully that answer, how he learned to do that, is something that, hopefully he'll be able to answer at some point.
Yeah. The bizarre and chilling story of Robert Durst. The book is called A Deadly Secret. Matt Birkbeck. Matt, thanks for checking in. Good luck with the book.
Thanks for having me.
7:30 here, Big 550 KTRS. Bowen Dental Care, ladies and gentlemen.